Whether it's a novelty work cup, treasured office plant, or company toy mascot, whatever you bring to work to help you be you, Workplace celebrates it. Their easy-to-use features make work feel more familiar, as well as helping everyone work together in new ways. Visit workplace.com/human to discover more. Workplace from Meta. Make your place of work a great place to work. Hey everyone, it's Jacob here. Welcome to another episode of The Future of Work. We got the neon sign. Those of you who are watching the video version of this, you can see the cool neon sign we got in the back that actually says The Future of Work on it. And today it is going to be just me. I don't have a guest, but I do have something that I wanted to go over today, which I'll share in just a minute. First, I just wanted to give a very quick, just personal update, because some people have noticed some changes on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. They're noticing the new studio. They're noticing some new stuff. So I did want to give a quick update. My wife and I and our family, we recently moved to Southern California. Those of you who've been watching and listening to this show for a while know that we used to live in the Bay Area, lived there for the last, 10 years or so. And then interesting, after COVID happened, all of our friends moved away and it was just us left in the Bay Area, in Alameda, California. And one day my wife and I were looking at each other and we're like, why are we still here? Our family's not here. All of our friends have moved away. What are we still doing in the Bay Area? And we decided that we would move to Southern California, which is where we are now. My family's in Southern California. Blake's family, her dad is in Southern California. My brother's here. So we decided to move back to SoCal. We both grew up here. And so that is where we are now. So you'll notice a new studio. You'll notice a new setup. We have a couple different design options in this studio. It's a great space for us. So that is where we are now, at least for the foreseeable future, in Southern California, in Los Angeles. Today, I wanted to go over something that I actually shared this online. And if you are connected with me on LinkedIn, you'll know that a couple of weeks ago, I shared this image, and it was called The Evolution of the Employee. It's actually taken from my book, The Future of Work, which again, if you're watching the video version of this is the book. It's orange. It came out in 2014, so not quite a decade ago, but almost a decade ago, give or take a couple of years. And I shared this image on LinkedIn called The Evolution of the Employee, and it went bonkers. Like, it went completely viral. It became the most popular thing that I have ever shared on LinkedIn. Through my channel alone, it got something like 1.2 million views. And then it got probably another million views through other people's channels. Everybody was sharing it. Everybody was commenting on it. It went everywhere. I started getting messages and comments and emails. It went completely insane. And it's fascinating because this is something I wrote about in 2014. And the whole concept was looking at how employees are changing, how the concept of employee is changing. And even though I wrote about it in 2014, it was something that was manifesting at a little bit of a slower pace. And then COVID happened. And all of a sudden, this became the reality. And what I really loved about this was something that I was noticing 8 to 10 years ago, just from having a lot of conversations on my podcast, through doing a lot of speaking engagements. These were some of the evolutions that I was already seeing. And now, again, 8 years later, it's now finally manifesting and becoming a reality. And I love the comments because people were saying, they were complimenting me, saying, as a futurist, a great job kind of predicting and seeing what's happening. And it really made me feel good that this is something that I wrote about so long ago that is now manifesting. So what I wanted to do today is to go over that concept. We will show an image of this diagram, of this chart that I created called The Evolution of the Employee, if you're watching, again, the video version on YouTube. And what I want to do is I want to go through this evolution so that you can understand what you need to do as a leader, what you need to do as an organization, or even what you need to be doing and thinking about as an individual contributor. So I'm just going to hold this up really quick to the camera. And again, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever your preferred channel is, hey, I love you for listening there, but you can also watch the video on YouTube. So there it is, holding it up to the camera directly from the book. I'm not sure how many people can see that, but we'll also put up a color high-res image too for people who want to check that out. And by the way, if you want to get a copy of the chart of this image and get an explanation, some of what I'm going to go over today, but if you want to get a full breakdown of what this evolution looks like and some actions that you should be taking as a leader, as an employee, or as an organization as a whole, I created a PDF that you can download. It's a really cool resource. You can grab that at thefutureemployee.com. Again, that URL is thefutureemployee.com, and that'll take you to a page where, again, you can grab this PDF and just download all this stuff yourself and go through it as you wish. So let's go through this evolution. The first piece of this, and there are 11 pieces to this image. The first one is, and it was designed as the past on the left and the future on the right. So the first line that we're going to look at is works 9 to 5 as the past and evolution towards working anytime. I think this is very clear already in what we're seeing in the world of work. This is a conversation that we've already been having. The idea of working 9 to 5 and working a set 32 or 40 hours a week is a concept that is probably almost 100 years old at this point. And we haven't really done a very good job of questioning why this is the case. Why do we have to work from 9 to 5? Like, why are these the hours that are designated for work? And why are the hours after 5 o'clock designated for personal time? I think technology has been the great equalizer here because technology allows us to stay connected and to work anytime, anywhere, and on any device. So we're moving away from this concept of work-life balance to work-life integration. And I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and he was asking me, well, what if people want work-life balance? The whole concept here is that work-life integration is about you as an employee deciding how you should be working and what makes the most sense for you. If you want to work 9 to 5 and that's how you choose to spend your time, hey, more power to you. But for most of us, we realize that this is impossible, especially as we've been going through COVID, right? Because we have kids that we need to take to soccer practice or to the doctor. Sometimes we are stuck in traffic for an hour and a half. Sometimes we just feel burned out or exhausted and we want to take some personal time to rest and work later in the day. So it's not about forcing you to work a certain way. The concept of work-life integration is acknowledging the fact that as an employee, you don't have to work 9 to 5 anymore. You can choose the hours that you want to work. I use myself as an example. I love to work in the evenings. I take my kids to school at around 7:45 in the morning. I come home, I exercise, I shower, I eat breakfast. My usual work day doesn't start until around 10:30 or 11 by the time I'm done with everything. So my schedule is not 9 to 5. And then 11 a.m., I have dogs, I walk the dogs, I have lunch during the day. Like a lot of the day goes by. And so what I find myself doing, I work a few hours during the day. And then when the kids go to sleep, I also find myself working a little bit at night. So it's my choice, it's my freedom, it's my flexibility. This is what work-life integration is all about. And this is what we're seeing. So this is a huge evolution, right? Working 9 to 5 towards working any time. Part of the challenge of working anytime also means that you need to set boundaries for yourself because working anytime can very quickly turn into working all the time. And that's not a good thing. Working anytime does not mean working all the time. The challenge is you need to set boundaries. So working anytime means that you work in a flexible way, but you also need to be more accountable and responsible for shutting off. This means having self-awareness, paying attention to if you're getting burned out, if you're exhausted, if you're stressed out. This means not taking every meeting or call that comes your way, whether it's 10 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning or 5 a.m. You need to do a great job of setting boundaries if you want to have this work-life integration become a reality for you, which I think most people do. So that's the challenge, and this is the evolution. Again, we're moving from working 9 to 5 towards working anytime. The next one that goes very much in parallel with this is this concept of the past. Again, this is moving down to line number 2. The past is working in a corporate office, And the future is work anywhere. Again, COVID has very much accelerated this. Working anywhere. Now, the important thing here to remember is that working anywhere doesn't necessarily mean we are going to be full-time virtual employees. Now, there was a study that was done by Microsoft. I think it was published in the Nature or the journal Nature Journal, one of those. I don't know exactly if it's called Nature Journal or the Journal of Nature, but they published it, 1 or 2 months ago. And they did a study on 60,000 of their employees. And they found that although in a virtual environment, you could be productive, which we all know, what happened is it started to stall their creativity and their innovation. In other words, working in a purely virtual or remote world is great if you want to just get stuff done. I mean, I have a virtual team of 12 people. Everybody gets stuff done, right? Projects, tasks, they're all over the world. We're very good at getting stuff done. But for organizations that want more, they want to grow, they want to scale, they want to identify complex problems, they want to identify unique opportunities, you want to move beyond just getting stuff done. In that kind of an environment, there is still a lot of room for in-person work. So that is the big difference, okay? We're not just talking about productivity. We're not just talking about getting things done. We're talking about going beyond that. Tackling complex challenges, identifying new opportunities, creating trust and psychological safety, being effective leaders. If we want to take it one step further, then hey, you know what? There is still very much a place for in-person work. And I do believe that. And guess what? All the executives that I've been interviewing believe that too. Now, that role for in-person work doesn't mean that you're going to be in an office 9 to 5. It might mean you show up for a couple hours a day. It might mean you show up once or twice a week. It might mean any number of things. That's what workplace flexibility is all about. But it does mean that having that physical in-person presence is still important and is still relevant. Again, this has been accelerated by COVID. How many of us are working and we're doing meetings from our closets? We're doing meetings. I did a call the other day from my daughter's bedroom because my wife was using this studio. I mean, we're working from kitchens, closets, kids' rooms, from all over the place, right? We're working anywhere. Some of us are going into an office. Some of us are in coffee shops. Some of us are in co-working facilities. So this idea of assuming that you have to be in a corporate office to get work done, I think has been completely obliterated. Work is no longer a place that you go to. Work is something that you carry with you. I mean, you have this smartphone here. You can pretty much get anything done on your smartphone, on a laptop that you can carry with you. So technology, again, has really pushed this forward. So that's another big evolution that we're seeing. So again, moving away, the past is working in a corporate environment. The future is very much towards working anywhere. And I think we can all agree this is exactly what's happening. But again, I also don't believe that this means the end of physical space. I do not believe it means the end of physical space. Next, the third line. It's moving away from using company equipment towards using any device. I wrote a book in 2012 called The Collaborative Organization, and this one literally was published a decade ago. And it looked at how to use a lot of these emerging collaborative technologies that are so mainstream now, right? All these internal social networks and platforms and conferencing tools and all the different things that we have out there, project and task management stuff. So this was 2012, so you can imagine a decade ago. And I looked at how to make these tools a reality, how to get people on board using these tools. And one of the things that I talked about in that book, and I still believe in now, is that we're moving away from telling employees that if you want to work here, we're going to give you your phone that you should be using. We're going to give you a laptop that you should have. We're very much moving towards a world where people are using their own devices to get work done. And not only their own devices, but they're finding their own software. If your organization is offering software that employees believe is tedious and time-consuming and ineffective and inefficient, and it's not beautiful and useful and valuable, why are they going to use it? I mean, imagine for a minute, look how easy it is to use something like Dropbox or Google Drive or one of these other platforms that are out there. If it's so easy for me to use something like that in my personal life, and it costs me a couple bucks a month, and your company is giving me some outdated legacy internet system from the 70s or 80s, why would I use that? I would just as well put in $50 of my own money a year and store my information in a way that
is easy for me to access and retrieve and share with other people. And that's exactly what we're starting to see. So we're moving away from having to use company-sanctioned hardware towards employees are using their own laptops, they're using their own phones, they're using all their own devices, they're using their own cameras, their own microphones, whatever it is that they need, they're using it. And sometimes companies reimburse them for it, but sometimes it's devices that employees already have. We're also starting to see the same thing with software. Now, with software, it's a little bit different because what we're starting to see is that it's forcing organizations to give employees access to consumer-grade technologies. Consumer-grade technologies. This means platforms and software that is so useful and valuable and beautiful that employees would consider using something similar in their personal lives if it existed. Okay, I'll repeat that. Giving employees tools that are so beautiful, useful, and valuable that they would consider using something similar in their personal life if it existed. I always joke that in our personal lives, we're in 2021 or 2022 soon. But when we show up to work, we get teleported back to the 1980s just because of the tools and technologies and platforms that we're using. So give employees access to tools and platforms that they want to use. Things that emulate the things they're using in their personal lives. We use Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google and all these other easy to use platforms. It should be just as easy to get stuff done inside of our organizations as well. Okay, so that's using company equipment to using any device. Next one down from that, the past is focused on inputs, and now we're moving towards focusing on outputs. Inputs. This is the old school way of thinking about work. Frederick Winslow Taylor, right? He is one of the people that pioneered this. How do I know you're working? Well, because I have to see you working. Many years ago, I was in telemarketing, which, by the way, was one of the worst jobs I've ever had. And it was obviously in an office, and everybody would be on the phone, and you'd have these like little isolation desks and cubicles that you'd be in. And if you're not on the phone, there's a manager, an executive that sits in the middle of the room. And if you're not on the phone, he or she will walk over to you and say, "Hey, how come you're not dialing?" Right? So the only way that they know that you're working is if they actually see you on the phone. And for a lot of managers out there, and I specifically use the word managers, the only way they know that you're working is if they see you. They see you in your seat because they are focused on the input. They want to know how much time you're spending. But what we're moving away from that and focusing now on the outputs, right? What have you actually done? I have the same mentality with my team. I don't care how many hours you spend doing it. Did you get it done? That's my goal, right? That's what I care about. Did it get done? Did it get on time? Did it get done earlier? Did it get done with a great quality? Like, that's what matters. It's not if you can see somebody in the office, because what's worse? I mean, would you rather have somebody show up to work for 9 hours or 8 hours a day, miserable, disengaged, doing low quality work, but you know that they're there for 9 hours? Or would you rather that employee be working somewhere else, let's say working from home? They're only putting in 4 hours, but the work that they're doing is amazing. It's high quality work. They're engaged in their job. They're coming to work each day with new ideas and opportunities. They are doing a fantastic job. What would you rather have? I'm hoping the answer for most of you would be, hey, you know what? The person that's working 4 hours a week, they're doing a great job. More power to them. I do not care how many hours they spend working as long as they get stuff done. That's the mentality that we need to have. And that's kind of the visual that I want you to have, right? It's not the time that matters. It's the quality of work. Simple space that you can see this, and I've worked with many graphic designers over the years. Do you want a graphic designer who's going to tell you, hey, this is going to spend, I'm going to spend 10 hours on this, and you charge them by hour? Or do you want somebody who's just going to say, hey, you know what? Give me $500. I'm going to make you the best logo you've ever seen. Chances are you want to go with somebody who's, you don't care how many hours they spend, they just get it done and they do a great job. So this is a big shift that we're seeing, moving from inputs to focusing more on outputs. For a lot of traditional old school managers out there, this is a hard thing for them to embrace, right? Because it's like, how do I know you're working? How do I know that you're actually doing something? Well, that person could just as easily be on Facebook. That person could just as easily be playing games on their computer. Just because you physically see them doesn't mean you know what they're doing. It doesn't mean you know what their mental state is. It doesn't mean you know how they're feeling. So that stuff doesn't matter as much. Focus on the outputs. What are they doing? What is the deliverable? Are they doing a great job? Is it getting done on time? That is ultimately what you should be focusing on. And this is, again, I think a big shift that we're seeing, moving away from focusing on inputs to focusing on outputs. Again, COVID has fueled this tremendously because now so many of us, we're not working in an office. Like, we don't know how many hours everybody's working. We just know that stuff's getting done, right? Whatever you bring to work to help you be you, Workplace from Meta celebrates it. Their familiar features help everyone work together in new ways. To make your place of work a great place to work, visit workplace.com/human. That's workplace.com/human. The next one level down, is moving away from climbing the corporate ladder to building your own ladder. Oh man, this is a big one for me because I always thought, especially early on in my career, that I would be climbing the corporate ladder. Those of you who watch my YouTube series and tune into the podcast know that I've talked about this for a long time, right? My coffee story. How I always thought I was going to climb the corporate ladder. I was going to be an executive at an organization like Pepsi or IBM one day, and I was just going to climb that corporate ladder. And it ended up not happening because an executive early on in my career made me go get him coffee. And that immediately disengaged me, deflated me, and made me not want to be a part of corporate America. And at that point, I realized, like, why do I have to climb the corporate ladder exactly? Why am I doing this? The interesting thing with creating your own ladder is that technology, again, has made this the great equalizer. Because what do I mean by creating your own ladder? I mean that you can shape your career path and your trajectory inside of your organization. You can do that. One of the ways that you can do that is through technology, by participating in relevant conversations, joining employee resource groups that are relevant to you, seeking out opportunities that might be relevant in your organization that are tangential to what you're currently working on, having conversations with your peers and your leaders and letting them know what you're interested in and what you're focused on. Like, you have more say in shaping that corporate ladder instead of assuming that if you're in sales, your only path is to be sales, entry-level employee, sales associate, sales manager, senior sales manager, sales director, senior. Like, that's not the only path that you can take anymore. But if you want to be able to create your own ladder, part of what that means is that you need to step up. You need to let your voice be heard. You need to use these technologies that are out there to speak up. You need to participate in the employee resource groups that are out there. All of this is going to be essential for you if you want to create that corporate ladder. And guess what? Now, especially, we're starting to see that a lot of leaders want this. Like, they want you to speak up. They want you to give them feedback. They want you to let them know what you care about and what you value. So you can very much start to shape your ladder. And now when we're starting to see this war for talent, every executive I talk to now says that it's never been harder for them to find talent. Now employees have more power than they ever did before. An organization does not want to lose people. It would much rather keep you and transition you into another role that you would find more suitable for the work that you're doing. So take advantage of the opportunity. If you're in a role and you don't want to keep climbing that corporate ladder, speak up. Because now, more than ever before, I think you're going to have a tremendous opportunity to shape that ladder inside of your organization. All right. The next one that we have here, one level down, is predefined work to customized work. And this is very much related to the one above, right? Predefined work to customized work. When I say customized work, this is a lot based on the technologies that we're using, the resource groups, your ability to speak up inside of your organization, your ability to let people know what you're interested in and what you care about. And I really find this fascinating because I'm trying to think of a good analogy for this. It's like, it's sort of like the organization is creating the work with you instead of just telling you what you need to do, right? The old school mentality is that the organization tells you what you need to do. This is your job description. This is your role. This is when you need to show up. This is what you need to wear. This is who you need to talk to. These are the meetings you're allowed to go to. This is everything that you need to do. And now, what I think we're starting to see, especially with this concept of employee experience, it's the organization acknowledging and saying, we're not going to tell you what to do. We're not going to create the work for you. We're going to design it with you. So you tell us, what do you care about? What are your values? What do you get out of it? What's your purpose? And so we're starting to see a lot of customization on work based on employees speaking up, based on employees using the different technologies that are out there, based on every employee within an organization now is both an educator and a teacher. In other words, you might be in sales or you might be in operations and happen to have a keen eye for design. And if you have people in your organization who are asking for help with design work, maybe you start participating in those conversations and discussions. And all of a sudden people say, hey, you know what? I noticed you're in operations, but you're really great at design. Have you ever thought about participating in some of the design stuff that we have going on, or maybe transitioning your career into design? And all of a sudden you can start to see how based on your voice, you can start to customize your work. You can start to create your own corporate ladder. So that's a very important thing that we're starting to see. But again, it does place accountability on you as the employee to speak up and to let people know what you care about and what you value. So this, again, is a big shift that we're starting to see. I think another part of this is also organizations who are creating, I think they're still doing this, organizations who are creating innovation teams, right? They create these random innovation teams. They get together a team of employees. It's outside of their traditional or typical role. And now they're working on some kind of customized beta projects. So there's also opportunities to volunteer, to be a part of these beta things that your company is doing. But again, you're going to need to speak up. You're going to need to let your voice be heard. Take advantage of the stuff that's out there, and you will be able to shape your own corporate ladder and to customize your work to some degree. All right, the next one after this is moving away from hoarding information to sharing information. Hoarding information used to be the way that we got recognized inside of our companies. If you have the best ideas, in other words, you keep the information to yourself and you only display it and present it at the right time, you get rewarded. Right? You keep everything to yourself. You don't share with anybody. Everybody's in it for themselves. Why would you ever share your best ideas with other people? And today we're seeing this massive shift where it's actually the employees who help others that get recognized and rewarded. It's the people who share their ideas to identify new opportunities or to tackle complex challenges that get rewarded. So there's no longer an incentive for you to hoard anything. Organizations are also very much shifting towards individual recognition to focusing on team-based recognition. So it's very interesting to see this transformation happening. Again, moving away from hoarding information to sharing information. And you know what I'm going to say, right? Technology, again, has been a huge factor in this because it's easy for us to share information across anytime, anywhere, and on any device. So if you're one of those employees that are out there or a leader that's out there who believes in hoarding information, guess what? You are only hurting your career. You're only hurting your growth. Share that information. Help other people out. Help make other people become more successful, even if they become more successful than you, because it's that human aspect of leadership and of getting work done that will make you become more successful inside of your organization. All right, the next one that we're starting to see is moving away from this idea of not having a voice inside of your organization to the idea that anybody can become a leader inside your company. Again, moving away from not having a voice to anybody becoming a leader inside of your organization. Because traditionally, employees, guess what? They didn't have a voice. You as an employee at your company, you didn't have a voice. You didn't like something, what are you going to do? You're going to mention employee engagement to somebody, 15, 20 years ago, you're going to get laughed out of the room, if not fired. You didn't have a voice. You want to talk about well-being and engagement programs, and you want to talk about satisfaction? Are you nuts? You didn't have any power, no voice. But today, we're moving away from this idea of creating an organization where people need to be there to creating a place where people want to be there. So now you have a tremendous voice. You have tremendous power. You have tremendous responsibility. And we're moving towards creating a place where anybody can become a leader. A leader is not a title that is bestowed upon you. A leader is a mindset. It's a skill set. Anybody can become a leader, even if you're a leader of self. I shared this image on social media a little while ago. It was an image of a pawn, like chess piece, chess pawn. And it was a pawn that was staring in the mirror, and the reflection back in the mirror was a queen. Okay, because as we all know in the game of chess, if a pawn makes it to the other side of the board, it gets promoted to a queen. So even a pawn can become a queen. Even you, if you're an entry-level employee, can be a leader. And the thing is, you don't need to ask for permission to lead others. Because leadership, again, is a set of mindsets and skill sets. It's what I talk about in my new book, The Future Leader. It's about helping make other people more successful than you. It's about thinking like a futurist, having a growth mindset. You don't need permission from other people to do these things. You can just do these things yourself. So again, anybody now can become a leader inside of an organization. You have that voice. Use that voice. Worst case scenario, you ask for forgiveness instead of permission. You ask for forgiveness instead of permission. What do I mean? It means if you want to be a part of meetings where usually you wouldn't be a part of meetings, if you want to try out something new where usually you would have to get permission to do it, just do it. And if you get in trouble for it, you say, I'm sorry. I really wanted to learn and grow, so I decided to attend this meeting. Or if they say you get in trouble, why did you try this new thing with a client? Oh, you know what? I thought it would really add value to them based on their needs. This is what I heard that they were looking for. I wanted to try something new. I'm sorry. That approach is far more effective because if you ask for permission, can I go to this meeting? Can I try this? Chances are you're going to be told no more often than you're going to be told yes. So don't ask for permission. Ask for forgiveness if things don't go well. Again, I really want to stress this, that anybody can be a leader inside of an organization, regardless of your role, your title, your function, your responsibility. You can become a leader. The next one down is moving away from this concept of relying on email to relying on collaboration technologies. Now, I'm not saying that email is going to completely disappear or vanish because I don't think it will. But email used to be the primary form of communicating and collaborating inside of an organization, right? That used to be the main way we got stuff done. That was it. That's all we had. Look at the number of tools and resources we have at our disposal now to communicate and to collaborate with each other. We have email, we have phone, we have text, we have things like Workplace by Meta, not Facebook anymore. We have Slack, we have Zoom, we have meetings, we have so many different platforms and channels at our disposal. And again, especially during COVID, it's these technology platforms that have become the de facto way for us to get work done and the main way for us to communicate and collaborate and share information with each other. So email, while it's not going away, it is no longer, I would say in a lot of cases, the main way that we're actually working with each other. In other words, we have so many other platforms and tools and channels at our disposal that we can be using. The next one is moving away from focusing on knowledge to focusing on adaptive learning. And really what this means is not being a knowledge worker, but being a learning worker. There is this mentality that whatever you learn in your schools, whatever you learn in your organizations is going to last you forever. And we now know that that is not the case. By the time you graduate from a 4-year university, most of what you learned is obsolete. What this means for you is that you cannot rely on your educational institutions or on your company to teach you everything you need to know to be successful, personally or professionally. You need to learn how to learn. You have to become a learning machine. Okay? That's what being a perpetual learner is all about. I'll share a personal story with you. I don't think I've shared this with many people. Maybe I've shared it once or twice in a video or in an email. I like to use my dad as an example. I have Russian immigrant parents. They came from the Republic of Georgia many, many years ago. And when my dad ended up in the United States, my mom and I were still in Australia. I was a teeny tiny baby, maybe a couple of weeks old. And my dad decided to come to America to create a life for himself, right? He was told about the American dream, and he thought America is the place to be. So he came over here. He didn't speak a word of English, didn't have any money. He lived in Philadelphia, and he had the opportunity. He could live in a community with a bunch of other Russian people, or he could live in a different community where nobody spoke Russian, low-income housing. And he decided to live in a community where nobody spoke the same language as him. And I said, Dad, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you want to be in a community of people who speak your language? And he said, because I left Russia. I don't want to be around the same type of people that I left. I want to learn and assimilate into American culture and life. So I want to be surrounded by Americans. I want to learn the language. I want to learn society. I want to learn culture. I want to learn what's acceptable. I'm not going to do that if I surround myself by people who are just like me. I have to get out of my comfort zone. And I love that mentality because he also told me the story of how he learned how to speak English. And he used to watch the Johnny Carson and Merv Griffin shows. And he had this dictionary. It was a Russian to English translation dictionary. And I have it somewhere in this house now. And it's a completely tattered and beaten up old dictionary now, but he used to use this dictionary, and when he would be watching Johnny Carson and Merv Griffin, he would look up the words, and he would practice for 5-6 hours a day in front of a mirror, mouthing out those words. And to me, it's amazing. That's what being a perpetual learner is all about. Learn how to learn. Now, the good news is today, you have access to YouTube and Coursera and Udemy and Khan Academy and how many different tools and resources are out there. There is no excuse for why you cannot learn anything that you need to know to be personally or professionally successful. That's what being a perpetual learner is all about. You have to learn how to learn. Take things into your own hands. Don't wait for anybody else to tell you what you need to know. And interestingly enough, I think we're also starting to see a lot of organizations tell employees that they need to do this. AT&T was one of the recent organizations that comes to mind. And if I recall, I think it was a couple of years ago, their CEO basically went in front of all of his employees and said, look, we're going to help you as much as we can. We'll give you tools. We'll give you resources. But if you're not willing to sometimes spend your own time, your own resources to learn what you need to know to succeed in this career and in this job and in this company, you should quit. And I think more and more we're going to see that kind of a message where organizations are going to say, look, we're going to help you as best as we can, but ultimately you are going to be responsible for your growth, your trajectory, and your future. And this is something that we all need to understand and something that we all need to embrace, and honestly, something that we need to encourage. So again, don't assume that you're a knowledge worker anymore. It's not what you know that matters. It's how you can learn. To be the smartest person in the room, all you need is a smartphone. I could look up anything, right? I could know anything that you know just by having my smartphone with me. But how quickly can you learn? Do you know where to go to learn? And can you apply the things that you're learning? That's what matters most. All right, we're down to the very last one. Corporate learning and teaching to democratized learning and teaching. Corporate learning and teaching means that in the past, anything that you wanted to know, let's say you're a part of an organization, you'd have to sign up for a seminar. You would have to wait a few weeks. You'd probably have to fly somewhere. You'd have to sit in a dimly lit room and listen to somebody with a monotone voice giving you some sort of a lecture on those transparencies, right? Does anybody remember those things back in the day? I still remember them from middle school and high school. That projector on the board and that transparency that goes on top and people write on there. God, what an outdated technology that was. It's crazy. But that's what a lot of corporate training is like. And now, even though we've shifted it towards digital, how many of us are taking corporate education and training programs that are so boring? They're scripted, they're outdated. The music is like, what is going on here? If you're even lucky that there is music. So corporate education and training is definitely seeing a major evolution. But part of what we're starting to see is that anybody is a teacher and anybody can be a student. There's so many examples now where employees are just, taking out their phone or recording their screen, and they're teaching their employees how to do something. Or an employee can use your collaboration platform and ask a question and try to get help on something. In other words, as a company, you can't assume that you are responsible for all education and training. You need to do a better job of connecting your people. Let them educate. Let them train each other. Let them be students. Let them be learners as well. And this, I think, is another fascinating evolution that we're seeing for the evolution of the employee. And it's also a necessary one because things are evolving. Things are changing. As an organization, you can't possibly teach everyone everything all the time. But employees, they can connect with each other and help each other and teach each other what they need to know. So you need to empower that. So this is the evolution of the employee. And I'm quickly going to run through these just as a summary. So the past, work 9 to 5, work in a corporate office, use company equipment, focused on inputs, climb the corporate ladder, predefined work, hoarding information. You don't have a voice. You rely on email. You're focused on knowledge and corporate learning and teaching. The future, work anytime, work anywhere, use any device, focus on outputs, create your own ladder, customize your work, share information. You can become a leader. You rely on collaboration technologies. You're focused on adaptive learning. And we are also focused on democratized learning and teaching. So this is the evolution of the employee. This is the evolution of the employee. And this is what I think we're starting to see much more of in organizations around the world. I think it's exciting. I think it's something that we need. And I haven't actually met anybody who says that this is a bad thing. So I hope that these are things that you will start to pay attention to inside of your organization. If you're a leader, I hope these are things that you will start to encourage as well. And I'm excited. I'm excited about what the future of work will bring. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. I certainly had a lot of fun putting it together. And it's interesting, again, that this is something that I wrote almost a decade ago in 2014 that is now starting to become so mainstream and manifesting itself in organizations around the world. So that's it for me. If you enjoyed this episode, of course, I would love it if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever your preferred platform is. I love reviews. This podcast is now one of the most popular podcasts in the business category. So I'd love to keep it growing, bringing in some amazing guests for all of you. And to do that, I could use your support. And one of the ways that you can do that is to leave a review and subscribe. All right, that is it for me. I will see you next time on an episode of The Future of Work. So that is the evolution of the employee. And again, remember that if you want to grab a PDF of this, you can do so. Go to thefutureemployee.com. Again, that's thefutureemployee.com. You'll get a breakdown of everything that I talked about today. Plus, you'll get some action items on there as well that will tell you what steps you should be taking to adapt and evolve as a result of what we're starting to see with the future employee too.